Hi, how you doing? Justin here. I just want to share with you a really excellent little jazz exercise for exploring your 1, 6, 2, 5, 1 chord sequences. The exercise was shown to me by a jazz guitar teacher that I had, a guy called Carl Dewhurst, an excellent Australian guitar teacher. He showed me this little trick and I had hours and hours of fun with it, so I want to give it on to you now to have a bit of fun with. The idea here is that we're just using a 1, 6, 2, 5, 1 sequence. We're playing 1, the altered 6 chord is a dominant 7th chord that's altered to the 2 chord to the 5 chord. To put it into musical terms, we're playing C major 7, A7 altered, D minor 7 to a G7 altered. But what the idea is that we want to move the melody, like i.e. the top note, from C up the neck as far as we can, making sure that it fits properly with each chord. Now I will do a close-up of this, but the idea here we'd have the C on top with a C chord. So that's going to be, I'm playing a C6, could be all sorts of things, but I'm choosing a C6. Now the next chord in our 1, 6, 2, 5, 1 will be an A7 chord, and we want the melody note to be the next note up from C that we can, which is C sharp. So in this case I'm going to choose an A9. Now the next melody note is a D, next chord is a D minor 7. Dead easy one. The next melody note is D sharp. We want a G7 chord of some sort, so we'd make it a G7 sharp 5. The chord is a C next, and we want the melody note to be an E. The next chord is an A. We want the melody note to be an F, so we end up with an A7 sharp 5. The next chord is some sort of D minor. We can't have the F sharp because that would make it a D7, which we could have, but we're not choosing not to have it for this exercise. So the melody note would have to be a G, which would give us a D minor 11. The next chord is a G, and we want the melody note to be the next note up, which will be an A flat, so we'd end up with a G7 flat 9. The next chord would be a C. We're back to the 1 chord. We want an A melody. Might play a C major 13. Next chord is an A7 again, with an A sharp melody or a B flat melody note, which gives us an A7 flat 9. Next chord is a D minor, and we want a B note, so that gives us a D minor 6. And the next one is a G with a C sharp would sound nicer. Oh God. A G7 flat 5 to a C major 9, say, for example. Now, if I play those without all of the talking, you'll hear that it is essentially this. I'll try and play the same ones. Just about got there. So you can hear now as a little exercise. It's really awesome fun because you've got to think about that melody note and the chord each time, because it's always going to be some sort of C chord, some sort of A7 chord, some sort of D minor to some sort of G. And you can really, there's a lot of different variations. There's not just one. And we're just doing it on this with the melody note on the B string, but you could also move the melody note to the E string or the G string or any other string you want. You can restrict yourself in other ways and make them 3-note chords. You can make the D chord a D7, so it goes C major 7, A7, D7, G7. There's so many different variations of it. Again, this is up to you now to explore this idea. I'm giving you a good little seed here. This is a great exercise, really good for developing like your skills for chord melody, because it makes you think about the melody note and the bass note a lot. So I'm going to show you a close-up of that little sequence I did there, and so I'll explain it one more time as I go as well. Make sure it's kind of settled in there, because this stuff's kind of complicated, you know. So hopefully this close-up will make things a little easier to understand. So let's get to that now. Okay, so we're starting here with some sort of C major type chord, but we want a C melody note. So I've chosen C6 here, 3, 2, 2, 1. But I could have just chosen a regular C, really. Now the next chord that we want has to be some sort of A chord. So we've got an A bass note and we want a C sharp melody because it's just the next chromatic one up from C. Now we've got an A9 here which works really nicely. We could have an A7 flat 9 if you want to get all fancy. We could have just played an A7 like that really. There's the C sharp melody. It doesn't really fit with the exercise so well, but so let's stick with our A9 chord because it's a nice one. Then we've got the next chord in our 1625 is a D minor. We want a D melody note. Well, the obvious one for that is that one, 5, 3, 5, 3. Now we want a G chord, and the next chromatic melody note there is D sharp, so falls into a G7 sharp 5 chord. Next melody note is an E, chord is a C. C major 7 is pretty obvious, could be C major 6 maybe, but C7 seems to, C major 7 seems to be the logical choice there. Now the next one along, melody note is an F, bass note is an A. Well hey, there we go, it's an A7 sharp 5 chord. There's other things, you could have made it a 9 sharp 5 or a flat 9 sharp 5, all sorts of different variations, doesn't really matter. Next chord is a D minor. Now we could change it to a D7 if we want, but just for this exercise we're keeping it minor. We can't use that because it would be the major. So the next chord would be the D minor 11 chord, 5, 7, 5, 8. Now the next chord is some sort of G chord, which is also here. The next melody note is a G sharp. There's the chord there is going to be a G7 flat 9, 10, 9, 10, 9. The next chord is some sort of C chord. Next melody goes from G sharp to A. So we might use this one. This is a G major 13 chord, which is the 8th fret, 9, 9, 10. We could have made it a C6 chord. Maybe that would have been a nice one for that one. Next chord again was an A7, and we want an A sharp melody note. So there's our obvious A7 flat 9 chord, 12, 11, 12, 11. Then we've got the melody note B, chord being a D. That gives us a D minor 6 chord, which goes to a G. Oh, that's a gnarly one. Let's keep that in there because it's easier to play than the other one, which is 10, 12, 10, 14, which is a G7 sharp 11, is it? G7 sharp 11, G7 sharp flat 5 to a C major 9 we could finish with. And that's that little chord sequence. It's lots of fun. But let's say, as a couple of other examples, if you wanted to, you could start with C major 9 here. So the melody note now is D with a C bass. Now we might go to an A7, A9 flat 5 to a D minor 9 to a D diminished, which is the same as B diminished, so it's like a G7 substitute, to a C chord. We might go, oh, we're getting a bit outside now. This is a D over C chord, or a D C6 9 sharp 11. Then we've got an A7 type chord to a D minor type chord. We're kind of back where we started now a little bit. Oh, G7 sharp 9, C major 7. Where are we now? A7, D minor 11, G7, what do we got there? Flat 5, flat 9 to a C6 9 to a A7 flat 9, flat 5 to a D minor 9 to a G7 to a C. I couldn't even remember that one, but it was something like that. What did I do for that? G7, D minor. This exercise is really good fun. It's a little bit complicated, but it really helps you sort out your relationship between the bass note and the melody note. Fantastic if you want to start getting into doing chord melody composition and working out how to play chord melody solos of your favorite standards. Great for just your general chord development. You know, there's a billion things. You know, it's just great for your brain to be thinking about all of those different chord shapes. You know, I'm finding even just doing it now, it's like, yeah, it's nice, you know, to kind of get the old grey matter working a little bit as well as the fingers. So explore that idea a little bit. Move that melody note over to the thinner string. That's a really good, obvious way to start. Just start with a different C chord and see if you can use that chord sequence all of the way up to explore those different melody note options. It's lots of fun. Hope you enjoyed that and didn't hurt your head too much. And I'll see you for another lesson sometime very soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.